What's up? Today we're gonna learn the simple and universal anti-Sicilian system. Here in this position you go for knight of 3, and after black responds with their usual Sicilian defense moves, then you don't play the usual move knight to c3, but you play something smarter instead. Because the downside of going into the main line is that you gotta know a ton of theory. Black can go for the Najdorf variation, which GMs love playing, or the dragon variation, the Scheveningen, the classical Sicilian pawn e5 line, and whatnot. You can see that there's really a lot of stuff to learn there. Now, instead, what I recommend you to play is you defend this pawn by going pawn f3. We delay development of our knight because we want to free this pawn on c2. So on the next move after black plays whatever, you go pawn to c4. And the beauty of this system is that you can pre-move your next 10 moves, go get your coffee or whatever you like, and once you come back, you have a superior middle game position. Now, you play pawn to c4, and after black plays whatever, again, you just couldn't care less about your opponent. You develop your minor pieces and you centralize everything. The advantage of having the pawn structure like this is that it's really difficult for your opponent to move forward and to attack you anyhow. And basically it's pretty difficult for them to move. You see, you already took away all the squares where they could possibly try to go forward, and attack you. So let's say black goes bishop g7, then you centralize your minor pieces like this, then you castle, and once you centralize your minor pieces, after that, it's time for your heavy pieces, for your rooks and queen. So your next move is rook to c1. And in this particular case, white sees the opportunity to rush into the attack right away. But just for the sake of understanding the system completely, let me show you the traditional way. The traditional way is that you centralize your heavy pieces. You play queen d2, and on the next move, rook to d1. Now, all your pieces are centralized, and your position is just as strong and solid as it could possibly be. Now, if you look at the black position, it's really difficult for them to move around, right? This knight can't really go anywhere, right? All these squares are taken away. This one, like they can't really go anywhere. This bishop on b7 is kind of dull, because it attacks this pawn, but it's already guarded by your other pawn from f3. Like, they can't move any of their pawns because you solidified their position like that much. If they tried pushing this pawn, good luck. Now, this pawn on d6 is left undefended, and you're gonna grab it. So it's really annoying position for black to play, and you just got a superior middle game position without thinking, just by playing moves by your hand. The next question you may have is how to play the middle game. Well, that's a separate subject. I recommend that you check out my free masterclass where I dive into chess strategy so that you know how to play it. But in short, you probably wish to expand gradually. So you can play something like b4, knight e5, and just gradually move forward. But anyway, right now you already have a great position. Coming back a few moves, white sees the opportunity to go for the attack right away. There's a common plan here in this position. So he jumped forward with knight to d5, hitting the queen. And it turned out that it's already pretty bad for black. Because if black wants to take here on d5, that would open up the c-file, and our rook is very handy there, putting pressure to the queen, and also our knight is ready to jump forward on this really juicy outpost square c6, and from there it's gonna attack a whole lot of squares in your opponent's position, making it really difficult for black to move around or to move at all, and you just win the game. In the game, black tried to avoid this by just moving the queen away from here to d8, because he also needs to guard this pawn on e7, but that really didn't help because of knight to c6, and that was a real nightmare. White is just attacking and crushing it completely. Queen went here to e8, and white could take the pawn and win, but knight to c7 is even stronger, and funnily enough, both heavy pieces of black are actually trapped. Your knights are doing quite a nice job firing all these squares, and black is completely defenseless, and he just resigned. By the way, black player was rated over 2400, and that's quite a devastation. By the way, while analyzing this opening, I found the game which blew my mind. I couldn't believe my eyes. Like, white violated all the rules and almost played the Bongcloud attack, and it was the best move to play, really. Like, that's mind-boggling. Anyway, we'll come to that in a moment. For now, let me just show you another interesting tactical motif that you can use here. So in this game, black played slightly different setup, but again, we don't care. We play all the same moves, centralized minor pieces, then we castle, and we move our rook here to c1. From here, it guards this pawn on c4 sometimes, and as we saw in the future, it also is helpful in your middle game attack. Now, black played pawn to b6, trying to fianchetto their light square bishop. Now, in the previous example, there was no pawn on e6, it was on e7, and white could jump with his knight forward to d5 and start attacking. Right now, it looks like this square is covered. However, it's quite common in this variation to jump there anyway, hitting a bunch of squares and pieces in your opponent's position. And the trick is that after black recaptures, you recapture by the c-pawn, and now your rook is getting opened. This knight on c6 is pinned down to the queen, which means that on the next move, you're gonna get back your sacrificed piece with interest. So if black plays something, you can get it back, and now you're a pawn up, and you are completely dominating. Again, you've got this monstrous knight on c6, you've got this rook on c1, which is very active, you put a lot of pressure with your bishops as well to his pawns, and same to all these lines, it's really difficult for black to somehow come out, you know, like, just to move forward. Like, you took away all these squares where they could possibly go to and trying to attack you. Like, they just have no moves, and you have a completely won game. Let me also address two common counter-attacking attempts of your opponent. Sometimes they're gonna go pawn to e5 attacking your knight. Well, then you simply drop the knight back, and guess what? Nothing changes at all. After that, you're going to play the same moves. But now, due to this pawn on e5, this pawn on d6 is left undefended. There is no pawn that would support this, so it's going to be a long-term weakness of black, and you're always going to attack it. Plus, this hole on d5 is also going to be black's problem, because again, they can't move this pawn back and cover it, so there'll always be a juicy outpost square for your knight to land it. Okay, after that, another thing which black sometimes tries is they try to team up against this pawn on c4, and at first it may seem uncomfortable, and how can you defend it? Well, there are two ways, a strategic way and a tactical one. Now, the strategic way is to go knight to d5. This way you shut down this diagonal so that the bishop no longer attacks your pawn, plus you are actually attacking a bunch of stuff here, and after the exchange, your position is just great. You advance your pawn forward, now you have even more space advantage. This pawn takes away the c6 square from his knight. In the future, you're going to still play the same moves, bishop e3, and then rook to c1, you know, grabbing this file, attacking the queen. After that, you'll continue your development. Life's good. That said, there is also a tactical way of handling this problem, where you let your opponent execute his threat and actually capture that pawn. In this game, white played bishop e3, saying, hey, you want a pawn? Go ahead. And black took it. After that, white played rook c1, and it turned out that black walked right into the white's attack. And black is currently defenseless. Just these two pieces are under massive threat from your rook. And in the game, black took on f1. However, white didn't even need to recapture because he played knight b5 with a massive attack here to the queen. And if black does want to lose the queen, they gotta move it somewhere. And after the queen moves, white can now go inside with knight of c7, forking the king and rook. And after that, you can win however you like. So you can grab this rook. Even simpler is to grab the bishop first, because the rook can't run away. You control these squares, and therefore you win the game easily. And here comes one of the most amazing chess examples I've seen this year. Now, it is white to move, and so far we've got a standard setup, right? So what do you expect white to play here? Well, usually it's bishop e2 and castle kingside, right? That's the most standard plan ever. However, in the game, white all of a sudden played pawn to g4, which looks like a premature attack and quite weakening the white's position. White is underdeveloped, looks like a wrong move to play. Okay, anyway, black was concerned about g5 hitting the knight, and he played pawn to h6. But white didn't stop here. He played another move which is really difficult to guess. He played a move king to d2. Now here, king to d2. Almost the Bongcloud attack. And it looks completely absurd, because instead of developing pieces as we usually do, white just walks with his king to the middle of the board. Like, what's that? If we saw this game just online, you'd assume that white player is a complete noob and he's just playing random wrong moves. But white player was actually a GM, so there must be some point. Anyway, for now, black couldn't comprehend what the heck is going on. Black played b6, trying to think out of the bishop, and white played king to c2, which reveals the white's plan. Actually, white decided to kinda castle queenside in the most absurd manner possible. He played rook to c1, and after that he walked with his king right where he wants to be, like this, which would form the queenside castling. Now, for instance, if black were to play a standard move, let's say bishop b7, white goes king b1, and yeah, we've got something very similar to castling. And if black now castles, it turns out that after move g4, it's really dangerous for black to do so, because after h4 and g5, you're probably going to open up the files there and checkmate black within a couple moves. Crazy. White played absurd stuff, and yet it turns out to be a really strong plan. In the actual game, Black wanted to punish White for this shameless plan, and he played pawn d5, trying to open up the position and somehow make use of this exposed king. However, it backfired. After the exchange on d5, White actually were right on time to hide the king, and now we have these typical tactics, which we have explored already, with our rook opposing his queen. And after Black captured on e4, now White does not have to recapture over here. White can jump forward with the discovered attack and a double attack against the queen, and White actually wins the game. So the queen has to move, and after that we go inside with knight c7, check the king, we can grab the rook over here, we can then go maybe knight to c6 to hit the queen and a bunch of stuff there, and White is just winning the game, and Black resigned within a couple moves. So this is a completely absurd plan, and yet it's really powerful, and you can actually make use of it. And if you want something spicier against the Sicilian defense, then we've got you covered. After this game, I knew that Magnus Carlsen secretly watches this YouTube channel, because he used our dirty opening trick to defeat another GM in 11 moves. Check it out right here, have fun.